Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tent Talk. This is Nancy McCready, the hidden symphony of preparation. We are in need of deep people who are faithful, stable, and for that to happen, they have to be a reflecting people, a thinking people, thinking with Him, giving time for the hidden work within to bring development to His life. Take a listen to today's episode. Who knows, it might turn into our next series of conversations here, but it's very important that we let the hidden work that's going to eventually fuel the big public work that is coming. We must allow God to do inside of us what He desires. So I pray this encourages you. Pass it on with others, and hopefully it will be an encouragement to them also. Love you all. Until next time. One of the greatest needs right now is not for more intelligent people, more gifted people, but for a deep people, a faithful and deep people who have given God the time to do in them what He desires to do, so that they can be to Him who they're meant to be. We have to be careful that we do not think that God just exists for us and He just caters to us and He's so in love with us that, He is love. And He has set His affections upon His new creation. And it is true that even while we were yet sinners, while we were yet enemies, Christ died for us. That because of the love that is God Himself, He sent His Son to die and pay and deal with every single hindrance to our being one with Him, so that we can be an expression of His life, an extension of His authority, that He might be known, that He might be seen and heard, and then, my friends, that He might be chosen. Oh, it's true. He has chosen us out in Christ, in love, before the foundations of the world. But will we choose Him back? I mean, what else would God have to do right now to convince us that He loves us? I would say the resounding question is, do we love Him? Not by guilt, not by threat, not by condemning, but have we matured into a reciprocal corporate son? Are we maturing into those who can be sent out as a full representation of the Father? No matter what the circumstances may be, and we will not falter nor stumble nor fail to say what He is saying and to do what He is doing. I am of the very simple belief that the prophetic and the apostolic at its core is I will say what my Father is saying. I am seeing what my Father is revealing, and therefore I will do what my Father is doing. The prophet Jesus, the apostle Jesus, this is how he lived. It's not I go around trying to tell the fortunes of other people and to stir them and to convince them that God's got a good life for you. No, do I go out on the behalf as a full representative, an ambassador, if you will, for the reconciling of people back unto God, the restoring of all things unto God. And where does that begin? It begins right inside your interior world. You're in for the inner fight of your life when you determine as the new man to step into a deepening preparation, a deepening abiding, a deepening development, a deepening development of His very life inside of you. And I have been reflecting on what Paul said in Galatians 3, when he opened up to the Galatians and said, "You unreflecting, unthinking, senseless, stupid, silly, crazy Galatians." My friends, we need to hear that loud and clear today. He goes on to say, "You who began by the Spirit, now you think you're going to finish by your own efforts, by your own flesh, by your own goodness, your own independent means? Where is the reflection upon what you have heard?" Because let me tell you, when God begins to pierce you and you begin to reflect and think with every step you take, with every sitting and standing and driving and shopping and sleeping and waking, your ordinary of everyday life, you begin to think on, what did you say, God? What did you say to me? Right? Because are we going to be people of depth? The scripture says deep, capital D, him, deep calls unto deep. Now that, my friends, is a slow fire miracle. That formerly shallow, self-consumed people are now called deep. And he's saying, I am the deep, and I am calling to myself that I put inside of you. Respond to me. And if we are going to be who we are meant to be to him and to our generation, to our families, I believe there's going to need to be the hidden symphony of preparation. Years ago, God gave me a vision, a picture, a thought, and I have reflected, and I have shared it multiple times. And recently, it suddenly splashed before me 2 different times. I had so much going on. The first time it came back to me, I was like, oh, wow, and then I got busy with things, and then God had someone mention it to me. How many of you know when your own preaching comes back to you? And I was like, oh, I think that's a part of what God is saying. So he had to poke me twice over several days to get me to go, oh, you want me to think about this. Oh, you're reminding me why you showed that to me. And I call it the Symphony of Sons. Because a great symphony that will one day give an open air performance does not begin by everybody being on that platform at the same time. It all begins years prior, when someone was pricked in their heart. Maybe they heard a symphony and something within them rose up. And they're like, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. An instrument, a certain sound gripped them. And they began to go into their own private practice room. And they allowed someone to teach them, train them, correct them, instruct them. They spent time practicing, drilling, letting it get deep within them where they could eventually, years later, step out of that private practice room and take their place within the larger body of the symphony and be glad about it. Oh, sure. There are occasional solos where one particular member or another is drawn out to stand up to add to the overall performance, if you will, of the entire symphony. But it always begins in the private place. And my friends, I am about to be involved in raising up fresh organic institutions of higher learning. And they must be fresh and they must be organic, meaning they must spring up from Him and consistently remain to do so, so that there can be private practice rooms and there can be a coming together with others in that symphony, the hidden symphony of preparation. and allowing more to be required of you because you begin to have the revelation and the understanding that more has been put within you. Therefore, more can be required. And then you make the decision to allow that more to be developed. Because preparation, yes, it can be because there is skill, but it also means I have to admit that I have lack, meaning I am not fully yet functioning. I am not fully there, but I am more and more and more on my way. And there are certain disciplines of a disciple that must be incorporated. Not self-discipline where you harness yourself, all of that. The disciplines of a disciple, just like there have to be disciplines of a runner. You have to stretch, you have to do exercises, you have to build up your core, you have to actually run. And you do it in time-released ways, and your diet and everything begins to move towards that goal of running your race. So the disciplines of a disciple, they are what put us before God. Disciplines, my friends, don't change you. Disciplines put you before Him, and He develops you. We don't want to make gods out of disciplines, gods out of study and reading the Word and meditation. And no, those are simply where we say, okay, I'm going to be a reflecting person. I'm going to think back upon what He has said to me. I am going to ask Him questions. I am going to allow Him to speak to me, however that may be shown to me by Him. On my most recent Producer's Way Live over on the Producer's Way Facebook group, I talked about how long will we tolerate our ignorance. This is a time for the sharpening of suns, for the hidden symphony of preparation, where we recognize our ignorance, where we allow for preparation to deal with our lack, where we allow Him to draw us to Him, that we would be the people of depth because we know Him, not because we're trying to be clever, but that we understand that the disciplines are a liberation from the stifling slavery to self-interest and fear. When we begin to realize that we were made to continue to launch out into the deep with Him. I'm going to continue in the next episodes to, I don't know how I would say this, if I'm going to chronicle my own deepening and share from that. I'm in my own hidden symphony again, and I'm about to fling wide the doors to the conservatory, right? To the university, to the schooling. And it's going to show up in different ways. I've been talking about this for a while, so if you're rolling your eyes over there, I get it. But it's also because those who will have the responsibility of stewarding this must allow for their own preparation first, before we can ever require anything of anyone else, and be able to say, hey, this is the way, go in it. We have to be going that same way ourselves. Because we must be those who can move with Him, with understanding, with such agreement, such fierce agreement. I mean, we have seen from His point of view. We will speak and say what we hear and see, and we will do and we will build according to the architect and builder who is God Himself. He is an all-consuming fire, and He is jealous for His people. And I believe that He's about to develop a deep reciprocal jealousy inside of this amazing company of sons that he's raising up. So there you have it, my friends. Let's keep moving with him. I love you all. I'm stepping in here at the end of this episode to say thank you so much to our financial partners, Kathy N., Mark N., our corporate partners around the world who continue to sow into us so that we can continue our partnerships with them and with others. New nations are beginning to open up. New places within the US of A are opening. This cannot happen without the continued undergirding and support of the financial partners of Nancy McCready Ministries. And remember, Tent Talk Podcast is the podcast of Nancy McCready Ministries and is listener supported. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with me on Tent Talk. Here we go.